How about them Cowboys? It's the Cowboys Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Dallas Cowboys every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from America's team the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Cowboys Squad Show, starting now.
Well, the Cowboys wrapped up their rookie mini camp on Sunday, but the Locked On Cowboys Squad Show continues, and here we go on a Monday night. As always, want to start with a welcome to the co-host of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast, Landon McCool. Landon, welcome, and my co-host on the in-season Cowboys postcasts, the one and only the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, coming up on today's show, we have a lot to get to. We have the very latest with what's going on here in the Cowboys offseason, everything that you need to know. Coach, I know you've been talking about this on your radio show, but Landon, I'm going to start with you first out of the gate because I know that you and Marcus Mosier were able to do a really, you guys were all over it all weekend long and last week as well. So kind of give us your Cowboys rookie mini camp recap, if there is one.
Yeah, if there is one, I think it's the kind of key point too, right? Like,
sounds good though.
Yeah, it does sound good, and whenever it's time to kind of bring up content, we're always hoping that there's like big news that comes out of mini camp. There never is. Of course, it's not, because basically what it is teaching the rookies how to practice, right? It's like practicing practice. Like you go in there and kind of get them used to the drills that they're going to be doing, maybe the order in which, the drills were done in practice, how practice is going to be set up. And basically it's all kind of an orientation rolled into a meet and greet, rolled into a making sure that they understand what is on the schedule, how to do the individual drills so that we're not having to teach anybody anything when we're with the vets, so that there's no time wasted. And that, we get everybody on the field and just kind of teach them the basics. Like I said, practicing practice, so that, by the time that mini camps and OTAs come in and the veterans are in there, you're not slowing them down because we're having to pull you aside and show you how to do a drill or direct you to where to go next. When the whistle blows, that sort of thing.
Coach, how about you? Did you hear anything from this?
No, I mean, this is let's just be honest. I mean, this is an acclimation time. This is to get guys understanding where your meeting room is, what time, and the coaches are going to talk about their expectations, and the strength coaches are going to talk about what they want. They're going to talk about, how they see you getting in shape. What is the conditioning test once we go to Oxnard? All the things that you're trying to do to acclimate guys so that when everybody is there, that they're at least ready to get lined up. And I say that because I really think it was a lot of meeting time. It was a lot of guys understanding what certain formations or how they call certain formations, and then how they, how do you view things defensively? How do you, how are you getting just the basic calls? If the tight end is lined up on the left offensively, obviously that would be on the right defensively. So then you start reading things backwards. And does that mean they're going to, the defense is going to make, a rip, a Roger, or whatever R word you can come up with to identify the strength of the formation. And then, at least you can go into understanding when the vets come in, at least understanding how to practice and at least understanding how to line up to the strength of the formation. And then you have the same thing offensively, understanding what just knowing what a split is. I mean, think about it. You're coming from the college game where the hashes are wider, where the numbers are wider. Now you're going to the pro game where the numbers are tighter, and they're going to want certain guys to understand. Look, if you're the X receiver in this formation and you hear this call, we want you lined up +4 from the bottom of the number, and just the little things from an acclimation standpoint to get these guys to understand what to do, so that as you do, get into the first practice and you're going to hit the ground running, you don't want to have to jack with a guy that doesn't have the split right, or he's made a wrong call, or whatever the scenario is. Because with the limited time of practice anymore, there's not a whole lot of coaching going on the field. I mean, they're coaching off the film, and they expect you to get out there and at least get lined up right. And so that's what you're seeing is, there's no pads on. I mean, maybe they ran a few drills. Okay, maybe they got expectations with what they want to do with getting in certain gaps and all that. But anyway, I'm carrying on into something that I shouldn't. It's an acclimation period, is the bottom line.
Yeah. Right on.
I think about like when anybody has a new job, like think about your first day at a new job. Like there's a lot of paperwork you got to fill out. There's a lot of, just things that you have to do. You have to be shown where everything is. Think about how much actual work gets done on your first day in a new job. And that's probably about how much actual football is getting done in these practices. So I think, it's about learning a common language, understanding where everything is. Just where's the bathrooms in relation to the meeting room, that sort of thing.
Right.
So just getting acclimated.
I like that. Well, I wanted to ask both of you this. I thought this was kind of cool. Former NFL head coach, former Houston head coach, Bill O'Brien spoke out. I spoke with one writer, and I thought it was pretty cool. Coach, I thought you could relate. He's now at Boston College, and Bill O'Brien had some really, really high praise for two of the Cowboys draft picks, Tyler Booker and Donovan Ezraku, not only about their play, but also about their character. And just talked about how he believes that they will both be really good fits, not only with the Cowboys, but in the NFL.
Well, I mean, you can see that they being the Cowboys scouting staff, the Cowboys coaching staff, placed emphasis on high character guys. They wanted high character guys. And, I understand that. I really do. I wanted high character guys when I was there too. But you know what? At the end of the day, I want some guys got a little bug in them too. I want somebody who will whip your ass behind the closed door. I don't want it, and so you walk a fine line with that, right? I mean, you walk – you're trying to balance your team out, and maybe they felt like they had enough, of those guys in the locker room, and they needed more high character guys to kind of, even it out. And so I think that's what you saw them do when they went about the draft process, was get a bunch of guys that are, high character guys. And again, that's all fine and dandy. I kind of liked it back in the 80s when Miami, and it was the U, had it going on. They didn't have much. They might have had one or two character guys. They had them some dudes that would go to war.
That's a classic. They had characters, not so much character, right? That's the situation? Those guys, I agree with what Coach said too. I think I think Tyler Booker is really a great example of that line that Coach is talking about, right? Where I think good, high character, not going to get in trouble off the field. Seems like a good kid that you'd want to take home to mom and that sort of thing. But I think at the same time, like he talks about wanting to make people quit on the football field and burying folks and putting them into the ground. So. I do think that it's right. Like you want to find guys that are good folks that are going to work hard, that understand how to be coached and understand how to be coachable. But you also don't mind if they're a jerk. They also don't mind if they're mean on the field. I think that's what you're looking for. And at times, I think specifically under the Garrett era, it felt like maybe there was too much of it and not enough edge to the team. So I do think it's a fine line. But I really specifically think. Tyler Booker is one of those guys who really does walk that line very finely.
Hey, Coach, I'm curious in this day and age, how difficult is it, if you will, coaching different personalities? Like you may have an alpha, you may have a guy that's got a bug, like you said, and then you may have somebody else who maybe is really kind of quiet, kind of calm, but then he puts the helmet on and he's a different person. But as a coach, what is that like when you're integrating new people and trying to create that culture that we keep hearing about?
Yeah, I mean, today's young people, it's a different animal. I mean, you're not, a lot of young, and I mean, I have a son that's a senior quarterback, and I mean, if I jump his ass, and he asked me the other day, "Hey, Dad, has anybody ever called you a stress amplifier?" I've been called a lot worse than that, pal. But so what today's society is, they're different young people. They see everything that's out there on YouTube. They see, they're different, and so I think it's about balance in the room. I think you spend so much time together in a meeting room. I mean, think about this for people that don't really understand. You go in, normally the first meeting of the day is a special teams meeting. Probably takes about 30 to 45 minutes. When I was with the Cowboys and Coach Switzer, everyone went to special teams. That's Troy Aikman, that's Mike Urban, that's everybody went to special teams meeting. It's a play in the game, and it's a very important play in the game, just like any other play in the game is. Anyway, long and short of it, and then once that's over, then you go to offensive installation, defensive installation, and then you're immediately into your individual meeting rooms. And you hear guys all the time say, I want to have that guy in my room. I want to have this guy in. And so let's just say you're talking about the defensive backs, where you got 12 or 15 guys who are in that meeting room. And, they got to get along with one another because they're in there for extended periods of time. So I'll finish the day. Then you got probably an hour. You got an hour individual meeting. Then you're going to go out to a walkthrough. Then you're going to go back into individual meetings. And at the end of the day, you're going to watch the tape in an individual meeting. So you're meeting with that particular group of guys for multiple hours in a day. And, you got to kind of understand that you can't have every single guy can't have this personality, that personality. They're all different personalities, and you got to be able to respect one another. You got to be able to get along with one another. You got to be able to banter and talk a little noise with one another. And then sometimes you're the guy that's giving it out, and sometimes you're the guy that's got to take it. And not a lot of guys can take that. And so, again, that's what they talk about when they say balance in your room and understanding what's going on in your room, and knowing that, if they had wings that day for lunch, one of you comes in there and farts like a bear in the meeting room. I mean, it's about to piss somebody off. Here we are in a tight meeting, you know what I'm saying? And he may say, "Hey, you rotten, no good," or he might just take the Lysol and, put it close to your yang and give it a squirt. I mean, if you see what I'm saying, I mean, there's a lot going on with personality. So you have to be able to get along and respect one another and still have, that camaraderie. You heard about Schottenheimer talking about moving guys around in the locker room.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, moving guys closer to this guy or that guy. Maybe they're two guys who really don't get along, or maybe they don't even know one another. Maybe they're not that tight to one another. They're in different meeting rooms. There are ones on offense and ones on defense, and you try to say, "Hey, let's get these guys together where they know one another. We think their personalities match," or whatever the scenario is. And then you're in there, when you're getting ready, the 10 minutes you're getting ready before you go out, or you're just taking time in your locker. I mean, you are saying something to that guy, and they're trying to create the chemistry within a football team. And it starts in a meeting room, and it starts, in the locker room. And you have to have that everywhere throughout your program, especially if you're going to win. You have to have guys that respect one another, and love one another. It doesn't mean that you got to invite him into your home or whatever the scenario is, but it is a work environment, and you got to make it the most productive work environment you can make it.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I thought I was going to ask you about that. Coach Schottenheimer taking a page from Jimmy Johnson by moving the lockers around and trying to kind of mix up the chemistry a little bit, like you just said. One of the things he's going to do is put Dak and Micah Parsons together in the middle of the locker room to try to create some chemistry there. Apparently, that's not been a thing. So that can make a difference, right?
Well, you hope so, or it might piss one of the guy off. One guy might say, "You know what? he stinks when he comes to work. I don't want to sit next to his ass. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and so yeah, you're thinking about your personalities of your guys, and you all go back to the question you asked, which is how do you coach guys? Some guys you can coach tougher than others. Other guys, it's like I'm telling you, it's like raising kids, and you can raise them right in the same home, and they can. I mean, the whole 9 yards, and some can take a swift kick in the pants, and some can't. And so you have to. I've always thought that coaching, it really is. It's a 60-40 proposition, and that means if you're getting after their ass 40% of the time, 60% of the time, you better be ready to put your arm around them. And I'm talking about professionals too. I mean, you gotta kind of love them up, and you gotta love them up in the ways that they feel the affection that you're giving them. It doesn't necessarily, it doesn't have to be words. It can just be sitting down with them and talking to them about things outside of the building. It can be, it can be how you coach them. It can be letting them, I was big into letting the players have input. Hey, today, I was going to I might let David LaFleur run the remote, because guess what? I want him engaged in everything that I'm doing. And you know what? He's not going to be over there thinking about whether he's going to have, what kind of Cajun dish he's going to have on Thursday night. He had to think about running that remote. And if he didn't hit it right at the right time, I was going to say, quit scratching your ass and get on that remote. I mean, that, it's just, again, if you can imagine all different personalities and everybody's trying to touch those guys in different ways and coach them in different ways.
Nice. Landon, any thoughts from you before we go to break?
Well, I mean, I think I agree with everything Coach said. I think what it seems like they were doing specifically, with kind of moving folks around is I saw like someone drew a little map of exactly, where they were kind of arranging the folks, and they seem to be kind of encircling the entrance to the locker room. So I think they're trying to get all the leaders, in kind of one spot to try to just be motivational as everyone's coming into the locker. And then I think putting Dak and Parsons next to each other, I think, that's just a case of, having, I think the two leaders of the offense and the defense, next to each other and so that they can, converse, compare notes, that sort of thing. They get along pretty well from what I've seen. I mean, I've only experienced them, at training camp, but all the time that I've seen them on training camp, it's a lot of jawing. They love to get after each other, but I think it's in a very friendly, competitive way. I think there's a lot of mutual respect there. So it should be a positive thing.
All right. Well, this is the show where you get insight like nowhere else. So I'm thinking about bears and wings and Lysol. So I'm gonna take a break and go to our first time out. When we come back, got a bunch of rumors. I'm not going to hit them all at once, but I'm going to throw a couple things at you guys. Also, got a lot of people weighing in via the comment section. We want to hear from you. Stephen White, one of our regulars, is already on board. We'll get to your comments as well when we come back. Great to be with you, though, on this Monday night. The Cowboys offseason continues. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right. Hey, want to talk to you about what they're doing over at Upwork. And if you are scaling your business, you know that it requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Now, Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. So whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. So they help you find the right talent. The fast and easy hiring is really good because you can post a job for free and it's simple. Within a day, you'll have multiple qualified candidates to choose from, and you have cost-effective growth. So instead of hiring full-time, Upwork can help you find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. So visit Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's Upwork, UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Jeff Biggs, Landon McCool, and the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. We're also hearing from you via the comment crew, Stephen White jumping in, and also Guadalupe Chavarria says, just give the Jets the number 1 pick in 2026 for Garrett Wilson.
Well, that's not the, I mean, at some point they're going to start getting desperate enough to try stuff like that for sure. And, I think Garrett Wilson's a fine receiver, but you're going to end up trading him and then having to pay him a contract pretty similar to CeeDee Lamb, I think, to keep him beyond next year. I think, because I think he has 2 years left in his deal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, I think, we're probably going to talk through a couple different scenarios like that, but I think that they've probably got to weigh all the options on the table right here, including the kind of more pricey ones like trading around your first round pick. I think there is obviously downside to that, not having a first round pick. And if that doesn't work out with Garrett Wilson the way you think it is, or if you're not able to kind of get enough usage out of him, I think you're going to miss that first round pick. But I think all options are on the table right now. You got to examine every single one of these things.
Yeah, whenever you start looking at, wanting that, and I get it. I mean, they need another receiver. They need to upgrade speed. I mean, it's a team that's not fast on that side, and so absolutely, I'd be for looking at all the options. But I mean, is it going to take a 1 to get him, or could you get him for a 2? I mean, there's just a lot of different variables, I think, out there, and that's the thing that when you start. I know you've heard me, guys. You've heard me say this a bunch, but you got to have the confidence in the pro scouting department. Mm-hmm. For instance, to say who is the best receiver in the league, who's the best one receiver in the league? Is that Jamar Chase? Is it Justin Jefferson? Right, and then you want to say, okay, well, who is the 32nd number 1 receiver in the league? And then you got to put that guy in, and then you got to slot the rest of them right down in there. And you got to have the confidence in those guys that are putting those grades together and slotting those guys. And then that's how you truly get a value for what you want to give up to get a guy. And so it is important. And I like, people chiming in and saying, hey, there's nothing wrong with the Casey Kasem mentality. You put your foot in the ground and reach for the stars. Hell, I'm all about it. Go get the best receiver you can for a 1.
Let me ask you, both of you, this. I'm curious, and Coach, you worked for Jerry, right? I mean, clearly, Jerry and the Cowboys know they have a need, right? They're not dumb. We're talking about it. They know where they stand right now. They know they're a little behind in their own division. So how do you reconcile that with, Jerry Jones? I mean, he knows he wants to win, right? Every year that goes by has been another year that they haven't won the Super Bowl. So it almost,
let me pose this question. What is in your mind? If I walked into you and I said, okay, what is, Landon, where is Jonathan Mingo in your hierarchy? Where is he? And we just talked about who 1 was in the league, and we talked about who, we went through the process. Where does he fit in there? Because he was drafted very high in Carolina, in a place that didn't have a quarterback. Do we know what we have in Mingo? Do we truly have a sense of who he is? Because he came in here kind of mid-year trying to learn, a McCarthy offense. Are they going to have is there going to be some carryover with a McCarthy offense? So really it's about what do you have on your team, and then how are we going to get, we have, and I think there's, you can look at Tolbert, Brooks, and Flournoy. I don't know that there's a whole lot of difference in all of those guys. They're kind of possession receivers. They're kind of, I look at them as kind of 4 or 5 guys on your roster. But what is it that we really have, and do we really believe that it's a significant upgrade? Let's just say, is Amari Cooper a significant upgrade from Mingo? And I don't know that answer because I haven't studied Amari enough and what he did in Buffalo. But I'm telling you, those are kind of the discussions that have been had and will continue to be had. And like the question was earlier, well, Garrett Wilson, well, George Pickens, well, we could just start throwing darts if we want. And my first question would be, okay, how much better is he than Mingo? And you better be able to speak to it. Don't come in here riding the fence with your I must just say it, with your nuts right in the middle. Don't do that. I don't want to hear that. I want you to tell me, because guess what? Accountability is big in the football business. And this is where I think so many times people don't realize what's going on. You're a scout in that building over there. You're making a couple $100,000. You got $1 million Marriott points. You got a pretty good freaking gig, right? You got a pretty good gig. And you're trying not to mess it up. And so if I come in there and ask you a question, you better speak with conviction about what I'm telling you. And I don't think if Jerry has one flaw, I think that's not something that he's comfortable doing, which is absolutely saying, look, I'm paying you X, and I need you to give me an answer. And you're not going to be right all the time. You're just not. There's no way to bat 1,000 in the scouting game. But I need to know what the 3 guys from pro personnel, whether that's Terry Gray, Henry Schroka, or Kubiak's kid. All those guys are in pro scouting. I need you to tell me, and don't give me some word salad answer. Who's better? And then make a decision based on that. That's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've still got some discovery to do, right? Like, I think that's part of the issue. This is a new coaching staff, and I agree. I think people are taking the talk about what we have to see what we've got in these guys, and specifically in Mingo. I think they're taking that as well, we think Mingo is our number 2 wide receiver, and that's settled. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think what they're saying is we have to know what we've got in Mingo, right? And then we've got to know what we've got in-house a little bit. And Mingo specifically because, he was a late ad, and there's a completely new wide receiver coach since he's been added. So I think there's a lot, and because of the pedigree, right? And he was the Cowboys spent a 4th round pick. I think that they feel like they are getting that kind of value for Mingo, but they just don't know where on that scale it is, right? And so, right. And that also kind of helps inform what sort of situation you want to get into for a wide receiver too, because I think part of the conversation that we don't, it's hard to kind of deep dive onto when you have a 30-minute show every single day, is that the spectrum of what's available and then what you really want out of a wide receiver too is very broad, right? Like the Cowboys in the last few years have operated in an offense where the tight end is the wide receiver too, or the second target in the offense. The Cowboys have operated in a situation where the wide receivers are the main focus of a very broad passing attack under Kellen Moore. So Dak has operated in several different types of offenses, and I think that also informs like exactly what sort of player that you're looking for, because I think Coach is right. Like you do seemingly have, 3 or 4 of kind of the same flavor of wide receiver, right? Like all kind of 6'1" or 6 foot, let's say, to 6'2", right. 208 pounds to 215, right? All run somewhere in the 4.45 to 4.55 range.
4.6.
Right? Yeah, 4.6 topping out, right? And they all kind of win similarly too. The guys that you feel comfortable maybe isolating on the back end of X that can run some, bang eights for you, that can do that kind of thing. But what you feel like you're missing, right? At least, in any kind of reliable way, is speed down the field. And I think that's why the Cowboys brought in a guy like Paris Campbell in the offseason. I don't know that that's enough, but I think that that's the reason that that's the guy that they targeted in free agency, is because they feel like they need speed there. I think, they'll probably try to convince themselves that Turpin is a guy that can operate in that sense. And I think he can go down the field and run a 9 route and, take the worst cornerback that the defense has out of the play for you if you need him to. But I think if you're looking for someone to actually threaten down the sideline, that's not CeeDee Lamb, that is going to be able to win consistently down the field, whether that be with speed or with size down the field. I think the Cowboys are still missing that. And I think that's why, like Coach alluded to, there's that feeling that it's not just a feeling that this team is slow, right? It's perception of it is slow. And I think when you watch the offense last year, even when Dak was in the offense, we've talked about this before. It felt like they were operating in a box, right? Like that they could only operate, from the line of scrimmage to maybe 20 yards down the field, if that, and anything outside of that was just out of access for them. Like they don't have the ability to access those part of the fields. And then when you add in the fact that they weren't able to reel in any big plays in the run game, it really limited, you've got a really good quarterback and a really good wide receiver, but you're playing on hard mode at that point by not opening things up, not loosening up the coverage. It allowed safeties to sit on everything shallow, which helped them in run support. It helped them in coverage if they wanted to bracket CD. So it just made life more difficult for everybody. So I think the Cowboys have some things to figure out. I think they know the type of receiver that they want, but I think that where along the spectrum, like, do you want a guy that you're going to get 50 targets to, 60 targets to, or do you want a guy that's going to be a 30 target guy? And depending on which guy you want, that's going to dictate how much you're going to pay, how much you're going to be willing to give up. And all that kind of, stems from, well, what do you have in-house right now? Let's accentuate that. And then we can make a decision. So we may not have a solution to this until after OTAs, until after minicamp, because they may just want to see what they've got in house. And I don't think that Amari Cooper is so obviously an upgrade at the price that you're going to have to pay to get him that you can't just afford to wait a little bit longer to see what you've got on the guys on the roster.
Yeah, Jeff, do you know what a bang aid is, Jeff?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm going to explain it to you, and then I'm going to send you a damn invoice for what it is.
I'm loving it.
Or it's your fourth outside or your seventh step, skinny into the window. If he's playing cover 3, you're going to shave his hip. They're in the cover 2, you're going to flatten it out. I'll send you the invoice after the show.
You got it. I love it, Coach. Thank
you.
Give
us all the Troy and Michael Irvin clips you can of running the
I got one right there in my office. That's going to play on it. It's going to have to play on a beta player. So I don't know if you've got anybody that's got a beta max player, but I got
it. That's worth finding a beta max player for sure.
Wow, that's going way back. Beta, I love it. That's outstanding. All right, really like a super quick timeout. Also, David Lawrence, to clarify, when I said they're behind, I mean I think we all agree. Am I off base when I say they're behind talent-wise? That the Eagles and Commanders have more talent, and that the Cowboys, there's a gap there. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's incomplete. It's the season, the offseason.
Yeah, the season hasn't started yet. Yeah, and
exactly.
that can change absolutely. And the draft helped for sure, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, think about if this team, just for the exercise of it. I mean, think about if this team hits with 4 starters. They hit with 4 starters: Booker, Ezraku, Ravel, Jaden Blue. One other guy ends up being a starter, and this team wins 9 games. All of a sudden, you close the gap there. Now, I know the flip side of that is if they don't turn out to be what you think they are, I mean, the gap widens. So it's it is something that, and I understand why. We hear a lot of times, well, Jerry doesn't do what he needs to do in free agency. And it's because in order to really get yourself in a great position with the cap, with the money that you have to spend. Today's NFL, you have to get contributions from guys on those rookie second year and third year deals. You have to get significant contributions from those guys. So that's how 49ers. That's how they're trying to balance out what they're doing.
Significant contributions at expensive positions. That's really just to add on to that. Expensive positions.
Another layer.
Because you got to be able to find a way to save money here and there if you're going to pay your quarterback $60 million a year.
All right. Well, funny you should bring that up, Coach. We're going to hit on that when we come back momentarily. Great conversation. Great to be with you all on this Monday night. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Jeff Biggs, Landon McCool, and the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, Landon, you and Marcus did a really, really nice deep dive into Cowboys, the third round pick, corner Siobhan Revell. And USA Today took it one step further, speculating that, hey, you know what? Maybe Trevon Diggs might be in trouble because of his injuries and his contract. He's missed 21 games over the past 2 seasons, has 4 years remaining on a $97 million extension, no guarantees beyond 2025. And then you have Deron Bland, who could be a free agent next year. Plus, you get the Micah deal that hasn't been done yet. There was also a trade rumor, maybe Diggs going to Baltimore to kind of unload him there. They didn't say what the Cowboys would get in return. But all that to say is everybody's kind of looking at like what you're both saying, the talent, the availability, and of course, the cost and the cap.
Well, first off, can we just take a second? I mean, for all the guff that Jerry Jones get and Stephen Jones get for signing contracts, which, deservedly so on some of it, they deserve a pat on the back for that Trevon Diggs contract because, as you just said it, there's 4 years left on the deal and no guaranteed money. That's a pretty nicely negotiated contract. I just wanted to throw that part out. To me, I think that the talk of Trevon Diggs being cut is pretty ridiculous. I mean, I don't think you are just going to cut him. I think, look, here are all the elements as I understand them with the Trevon Diggs situation. He had the ACL injury previously, right? There has been some whispers around that maybe he didn't work as hard as he needed to get healthy all the way from his ACL injury, and that may have contributed to this recent re-injury ACL. It sounds like, if you read the tea leaves a little bit of what Jerry's saying, that hopefully this time around things are kind of going on a better course, that he's maybe understood that maybe his miscalculation and his first rehab and adjusted. But that doesn't stop you from kind of looking over at Deron Bland, who's got an expiring contract coming up, and questioning, hey, look, we signed this deal in such a way that the guaranteed money is finished. If we wanted to go the route of having just one expensive corner on our roster and it being Deron Bland, there is the opportunity at this point to move on from Trevon Diggs. And if you wanted to see if you could trade him for something, especially because you have a contract with him that has no guaranteed money, I think that's very possible. I think he becomes a very tradable commodity. But the idea of cutting him, I think, is ridiculous because I think he is a commodity. I think if he comes back healthy, at the very least, if best case scenario, Revell comes in and is able to start early, get some good experience, is able to kind of hold things off for the first, let's say, month of the season. Diggs comes back in October, and now suddenly you've got champagne problems. What are you doing with all these quarterbacks? I think you've got an option to reduce Bland down into the slot, and man, now you're cooking with gas. It's been a long time. In fact, I can't even remember the last time the Cowboys actually had signed 3 solid corners and had them all 3 play on the field at the same time. Obviously Jordan Lewis, being part of that here and there doesn't count. But I just think that the idea of like just completely letting Trayvon Diggs go at this point, it doesn't make a lot of sense. He's too talented, and I do think that there, the opportunity to kind of give him another shot here, see how he does, and to shoot for that goal of having 3 really, really good cornerbacks on the field at the same time, especially with the pass rush the Cowboys have. That's something that if it all kind of works out and you're able to capture that, you could be looking at a situation where you have one of the best pass defenses in the NFL if you can figure that out.
I think there's a couple of pieces of this puzzle for me. I mean, number one, let's go back to the exercise we just did on receivers. Let's do it on corners. Where is Diggs? Where's Diggs in this? When he's healthy, where is he? He's a gambling corner that's, doesn't have great speed, but he's a gambling ball hawk. That's what he is. So where does he fit in that? Then number two is Matt Eberflus. I didn't study any Bears film. The Cowboys didn't play the Bears last year. I don't know how much man coverage he plays. I don't know what kind of emphasis he plays on. You heard Landon say earlier, bracket coverage. Well, it's guys playing outside and funneling guys inside, or opposite, playing inside to funnel guys outside. I don't know what he's planning on doing, and I don't know how he's planning on doing that. He brought a bunch or several of the coaches from the Bears to the defensive side of the ball. So do they think – I would like to think that the personnel of the Cowboys defensively is better than what he's been playing with in Chicago. But what does he want? What does he expect from his guys? And does he anticipate playing a lot of man coverage? Does he anticipate trying to bracket certain guys? If you look at now back to what we said earlier, you look at the league. I mean, you're going to play Brown and Smith on the same team who can both kill you in Philadelphia. You're going to play McLaurin, and who's opposite of him. And you got to have a game plan for where you're going before you even go into the speculation and the possibility of letting Trayvon Diggs get out of the building.
Yeah, and just to kind of fill in there, he is mostly a zone guy, and so it's going to be a lot of cover 1, cover 3 mostly, and some man match stuff. I mean, that's kind of all the rage now, right? So I do think he's a pretty decent fit. I mean, obviously that's we'll see, right? But I think it's going to still be a lot of silo coverage, which I think is where he's at his best. I mean, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Coach. Like, I think where Diggs specifically struggles is when you're asking him to cover somebody going across the formation, right? Like going like in crossers and that sort of thing, deep crossing. I think when he has to open up his hips and get like horizontal across the field, that's really where I feel like he struggles the most. Would you agree?
Well, I mean, any corner struggles covering deep overs, right? It's just, anytime the quarterback can stand back there in a 7-step drop and throw a deep over, like that's a problem for – I don't care who it is. I mean, I think, yes. Do I think Diggs is not a speed guy. He's not. He's not a great, he doesn't play football at 4.5. He just doesn't. And so – anybody's going to struggle with that. Then the issue becomes, can you cover them long enough to let the rush get there? And that's, again, those are all things that I think, you say he plays a lot of 1 and 3, and okay, that means he's going to bring the other safety down in there and try to stop the run, and all that's fine until you get your ass busted a time or two in that coverage with the guys that you have. So I think you have to play to what your personnel dictates. And I don't know that – I know Trayvon Diggs is not a big get up in you, jam you guy and run with you. He's not. He's more of a, hey, I'm gonna play here from 9 to 11, and then I'm gonna pedal, and then I'm gonna keep an eye on the quarterback, and I'm gonna break on this football. And he gambles a lot, and so does Bland. Bland gambles a ton too, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that as if I'm dinging those guys. I'm saying that he gambles a lot too. So to me, those two guys are kind of the same guy. They really are. They're kind of ball hawk, gambling guys. Are they going to get beat on a double move? Yep. If the quarterback has time, you can slug on them. You can do stutters. You can do a lot of things to beat them because they're going to gamble and break on the football. So I think it'll be interesting to see how. I don't know if I pronounce. They said the H is silent on. Is it Savon Rebel? Yeah. So I'm trying to pronounce his name right with my Texas accent. I'm damn good at saying chicken fried steak, but I ain't the best at pronouncing these names. So I think that, at the end of the day, looking and seeing what you have from a personnel standpoint is something they're going to do long before they consider moving a guy out of here. I would be more inclined to say, what does it take to get Jalen Ramsey in here instead of what is it going to take to move Trayvon Diggs out?
Yeah, well said. And there's time. I mean, there's time for all of that to get done for sure, on both sides. And that leads me kind of shifting a little bit. Look, and I preface this by saying I know this is kind of the time where you got a lot of people that are trying to write things and come up with different angles. And so a lot of talk about, hey, Jerry Jones, waited a long time, waited to the wire with Dak to get his deal done, waited with CeeDee Lamb. Why is he waiting again with Micah Parsons? Why doesn't he just get the deal done now and not let the price continue to go up or not? And I mean, it doesn't sound like there's really any issue between the two. It's just a matter of getting it done when the time is right.
My whole thing with this is I don't understand why this is always Jerry's fault that this is not getting done in a timely manner. When in reality, like it behooves the agents and the player to not sign the deal right now, right? Like if anything, like the motivation is on Jerry's side to get it done to a certain degree. Look, I think he has talked about wanting to wait on deals, and I think that's one thing, right? But I also think that people aren't pointing to the fact that in every one of these situations, and specifically in the CeeDee Lamb situation, right? Like where there were a number of wide receivers all in line for deals. And the coach, the agent team wanted to wait in order to kind of increase the cost, right? So I think that there is certainly an aspect that feels like maybe you could get these deals done earlier. But that's just not really how they like to do business with some of these players. I think they felt like they've been burned on a couple of these early deals, especially recently in the last few early deals they've done. Now, I think the argument could easily be made that maybe they picked the wrong folks to give those early deals to, that maybe Jalen Smith and a running back were not the best folks to kind of be giving early second deals to. But I think that, look, we just talked about Trayvon Diggs. They got that done pretty early, and that's working out for them now. So I think if they wanted to do deals like earlier in the process of when they're eligible, that would make some sense. But now at this point where we are with Parsons, I don't think this is all on the Joneses. I think that this is also, partially that the agent understands that the longer they wait, the more money that they possibly can make.
Yeah.
And what does that result in? That results in his percentage, his pay going up, and he wants to make it look like to his client, I'm fighting for you, man. I'm going to get every dime I can get here. And so you heard Jerry say initially in the negotiations that he was trying to talk to Micah, and he wanted, just a one-on-one discussion with those guys. And at the end of the day, I mean, I can remember telling my guys when I was in there, fellas, the agent works for you. You do not work for him. And so, a lot of the negotiation is it takes two to put it together, and you got to kind of be in lockstep with it. And then if you know Jerry's personality, I mean, I've never known a guy in my life if he was a gambler when he was early in his life, got to later in his life and had no gamble in him. I mean, you're either a gambler or you're not a gambler. And that's, I mean, I'm serious. It's that simple. Have you ever met a guy that was just like, just so tight with his money and stepped to the blackjack table and it was a $20 minimum bet and he didn't know whether to crap in one hand or wish in the other. I mean, seriously, he's not a gambler. And Jerry is a gambler. He is an oil guy. He's like, drill there. Okay, we didn't hit it. We'll drill over there. Okay, we didn't hit it. We'll drill up. And eventually he's going to hit it. And that's how his mind works. That's how he does his real estate business with Blue Star Land. That's how he does Blue Star Oil and Gas. It's all a gamble for him, and he's not afraid to do that. Just like he did when he bought the team, and he literally emptied both his front pockets and told him to kiss a rabbit between the ears. He was all in. I mean, to me, it just speaks on what kind of guy he is.
Especially, I'll just say, especially since the beginning of this whole conversation of Micah's deal, it felt like that, and I think it's been pretty much confirmed at this point that Micah and Jerry got together and hashed out 90% of the deal, and then once the agent got involved, now we've ground all the way to a halt. So I think there are certainly situations where it's Jerry trying to get some pizzazz out of the signing or trying to delay things because he wants to be sure. That certainly exists. But this one specific scenario, I mean, I think we've seen that Jerry and Micah got together and did most of the work. And then Micah got his hand slapped by his agent, had to release a tweet that sounded like the most agent tweet I've ever heard Micah tweet out. It was clearly a copy and paste from an email or something. And then suddenly there's been no further conversation since then. So this one doesn't fall on Jerry as far as I'm concerned. This one falls on the agent.
You're saying Micah didn't home row key it ASDF JKL semicolon? Is that what you're saying?
It was written like an English major wrote it. I was like, I don't know. That doesn't sound like the same tone that I'm used to.
They call AI today, isn't it? You just get somebody else to do it for you.
Yep, that's right.
AI was the assistant of the agent.
All right, we're going to take our final timeout. Final segment coming up. Man, this show has flown by tonight. Good stuff. Good talk, you guys. Final segment coming up. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, welcome back. The Cowboys Squad Show. The coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, Landon McCool, and I am Jeff Biggs. Thank you to those of you that have been weighing in with your comments. Appreciate you via the comment crew. Thank you for that. Always love for you to be a part of the show. We want you to be a part of it. That's why we're here. So we were talking about wide receivers and rumors and possible fits. One list that I came across, it's kind of a different group of three. Wanted to run this by you guys. One of them is Christian Watson being kind of the odd man out, potentially in Green Bay. Another is former Cowboy Cedric Wilson coming back from New Orleans, or there's the Titans, Treylon Burks, who is coming back from a torn ACL, but he did go to Arkansas and has apparently been on the Cowboys' radar before. And of course, we mentioned Cedric Wilson, who was drafted by the Cowboys in 2018. Any of those names move the needle?
The Christian Watson, the Green Bay situation is fascinating to me because you look at they clearly are one of these teams that you look at their depth chart, you look at guys that could potentially be moved. I mean, they obviously drafted 2 wide receivers, one of whom probably is a running back, and they still have all these kind of extra guys over there, and Watson is the one that you feel like they probably would move
Right.
He probably would be a decent fit for what the Cowboys are trying to do. But man, I don't know that you want to take it on, right? It's like it's a combination of injury and inconsistency with him that's really just maddening. And there's a reason that he's the one that I feel like the Packers would get rid of, right? Because I just feel like he's, even though he's probably one of the biggest explosive playmakers of that group, certainly of the group of Packers wide receivers that they would be willing to trade. I mean, he's currently injured, so I don't know that you even could trade for him. I think maybe he is eligible at this point, but I mean, the point being that he's constantly injured. That's constantly dealing with that, and that even when he isn't injured, his play is inconsistent. So I understand. I've been the guy that's been saying all these guys have warts. Clearly, that there's no way you're going to get a perfect prospect at this point. But there is a lot of kind of eek that goes on to Christian Watson.
Yeah.
Would I do it? It would depend on the price there. I think Treylon Burks, man, we've been talking about this forever. Like, it feels like the Cowboys already got Treylon Burks, and his name's Jonathan Mingo. So I'm not sure that they're going to get into collecting another one of these guys. He's certainly. I think him and Wilson aren't really solutions for wide receiver too. To me, Burks is like maybe a nice high-end 3. And Wilson is a guy that is more just kind of like a glue guy for your offense, like off your wide receiver room. Like, I'd love to have Wilson on my team, but I'm not signing Wilson and then going, the wide receiver 2 is solved. Like, that's just not the case. So to me, Watson's the only one of those guys that, potentially maybe you can convince yourself is what you need. But there, the injury and the inconsistency would really give me pause.
Yeah. I'd be more inclined to take a hard look at, okay, where are your new head coaches at? And then who do you think is not going to fit? For instance, Aaron Glenn in New York, or let's say Pete Carroll, who's not going to fit with Pete Carroll and what he wants to do with the Raiders, or Kellen Moore. I mean, is Olave going to fit in that outfit? I don't know. I have no idea. Shaheed, I mean, is he going to fit it with what Kellen Moore wants to do? The Bears, Eberflus knows the Bears. So are they going to fit with what Ben Johnson has done? You've already seen, I mean, the best, everybody had Warren as the best tight end on the board. Well, they didn't draft him. They drafted the kid out of Michigan, and they did because it's almost like they look for certain characteristics in guys. I think my memory serves me correct, they traded Hawkinson a few years ago to go change the tight end out in Detroit. So, do the receivers that they have in Chicago fit with what Ben Johnson wants to do? And then, is there value in making a play for somebody? Maybe they're one. I mean, whether that's DJ Moore, whoever their one is, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is, other than New England, who is borderline a bad football team, Jacksonville a bad football team, I probably would not look there. But I dang sure look at some of these teams that have first-year coaches and new coordinators in there, because they're going to have an idea of what they want from a wide receiver standpoint, and from every position for that point.
Yeah. DJ Moore is an interesting name because, I've gotten a lot of guff from Bears fans for kind of suggesting that he could be a trade target. But I mean, you laid it out, right? Like, they just went and got Loveland. They just went and got another kid that's just basically a DJ Moore clone, right? The kid from Missouri who's escaping me right now for some reason. Luther Burden. Thank you so much. And to me, if they play, DJ Moore had issues with his role last season with playing with Caleb Williams, and if their plan is to kind of stick him into that X receiver, like sacrificial X receiver role that they had in Detroit, and not put him in the slot and have him operate in the in the kind of role that they had in Detroit that they feed basically 100 plus targets to. I can see him still being very frustrated with that role. They basically have drafted pass catchers in the first round last year, the first round this year, and the second round this year. So I can understand. And look, that also falls under that kind of pricey potential solution to this, right? Because you're going to need to I think for DJ Moore, you're going to need to make an offer that pries him away from the Bears, because I don't know that I think they're probably cool with just riding into the season and dealing with a disgruntled DJ Moore and saying, hey, buddy, sorry if you don't like the role that you've got. That's what this is. So I think you would have to pry him away from Chicago, and then you'd have to be comfortable with eating his salary or taking on his salary, because he is currently making somewhere in the excess of $20+ million a year, which I think is not in excess for what you're getting for DJ Moore, but it's something you're going to have to consider. And do you want to commit to that kind of targeting, right? Do you want to commit to throwing the football to your wide receiver to that much in this system that in a year that you already want to run the football a lot more?
Right.
You know that your quarterback loves to throw the seam ball to the tight end. Is your wide receiver 2 going to get $20 million plus whatever you have to trade away worth of value in this offense? That's something you need to ask yourself.
Well, and it's the same thing Kansas City had to go through when they had to pay Mahomes a few years ago. Yep. They couldn't afford McCole Hardman. They had to let him go. They couldn't afford Tyreek Hill. They had to let him go. I got news for you, Dak. $60 million, bro. You're getting the lion's share. So guess what? I get it. We don't have a lot of speed out there, but you think Mahomes wasn't? You think he didn't get the red ass with Valdez, Scantling, and some of those guys, some of those down the line guys that he was having to play with, and guess what? He won anyway. That's where he showed he was the best quarterback in the NFL at the time, because he won with a little bit less than he had been winning with.
All right. Well, on that note, guys, great show tonight. Again, love you both. Glad we could do this. Looking forward to Thursday when we do it again. Some final thoughts before we go. Landon, what do you guys have coming up on Locked On Cowboys?
Yeah, just kind of continuing to march through our deep dives on some of these draft picks, getting ready to get ready for mini camps and OTAs is coming up here in, we're getting close, like a week and a half maybe. So, just kind of getting everybody ready for these players so that we know who they are by the time that we start getting practice reports in OTAs and minicamp.
All right, Coach, what are you up to?
It's a daily radio show, and if y'all want to talk about why the Rangers can't hit the ball right now, we talk about that. I don't know jack about that. I can tell you how to dual read a guard if he's uncovered. I can tell you how to scan a protection. Hey, Rangers fired their hitting coach today, and Stretch has to put it out there on the afternoon stretch, but it doesn't mean I know what I'm talking about. Just like I placed a little wager on the Kentucky Derby, and I've still got the tickets over here. I'm going to wallpaper part of my office with those tickets.
Journalism got you again, huh, Coach? Is that what it is?
Another loss for journalism. All right. All right, guys. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody for being a part of the show. Again, that is Landon McCool. Check him out every day with Marcus Mosier on the Locked On Cowboys podcast. And, of course, the one and only Glenn Stretch Smith. We will be back with you again on Thursday. Until then, thank you for watching. This has been the Cowboys Squad Show.